keep moving. So what I want you to do, we're going to talk about effective coaching habits. I want you to stand up, go and find someone else, right, and share with them your most positive coaching trait and your most positive coaching habit. So when I say positive coaching trait, what about you do you feel makes you a good coach? And then also share what action you do as a coach consistently you feel makes you a good coach. So go and share your most positive coaching trait, your most positive coaching habit. Go, you've got 47 seconds.
What happens to shot and that's what that's going to take a shot Keep moving. All right. Excellent job. Excellent job. Because sometimes that can be intimidating, right? It's like when you ask players at the end of practice, you know, we want to use questioning and we say, what do you think of that session? Oh, it was okay. You know, any comments? Oh yeah, we didn't do this, we didn't do this, we didn't do, because that's what they're conditioned. They're waiting for us to give them the negatives and say, oh, we can do so much better, coach, and we know that wasn't great and we're sorry. You know, so sometimes it's hard to go, well, this is what I think I do really well. This is a part of me that I think makes me a worthwhile, joyful coach. And that's really, really important. So when we talk about effective coaching habits, it's really about what we're willing to share with our players, how vulnerable we're willing to be in giving something of ourselves to the players. So it was great that people walked straight over to someone and then there was instant dialogue. There wasn't a lot of, oh, you know, another one of these role-playing bit. It was just instant, genuine, authentic, and I would imagine vulnerable, especially for, no offence to 90% of people in the room, the blokes. We don't do that very well. Oh, I think I do this well. Oh, good for you, mate. Wow. You know? And that's something that's an effective coaching habit, is vulnerability and the ability to share your genuine thoughts. For me, the 3 C's of effective coaching, and this is, it could be conversations, conversations, conversations. As I go around, as I said, I've got the best job in Australia. I just travel around everywhere, go to great places. I went to Geraldton on Thursday. I've never been there before. What a phenomenal place that is. You know, drive along the Indian Ocean. And I find that we're not having enough of these as coaches. We're not having enough of them
with each other, and we're certainly not having enough conversations with players. Now, Ben spoke about culture, and there was some phenomenal things there, but the underlying theme through that was conversations. You know, being able to have the open and honest conversations. You know, being able to get a group of athletes in a room and have conversations about what they think, what their input is, and how we can build our culture. So if you want to be a more effective coach, invest in more conversations. We'll talk about flight path coaching as we go through here. Competency is an obvious one. Yeah, and you're doing that. You're investing in your competency by being in. Now, some of you, and most of you, have sat here diligently since 9 o'clock this morning, listening to a wide variety. That's tough. That's difficult. So you're investing in your competency, but you need this so you have this. The third one is confidence. Confidence is a two-way street in terms of you being an effective coach. You need to be confident in your skill set. You need to be confident in your value system. You need to be confident in your ability to have the conversations, so you can, more importantly, create confidence in your young players. One of the major issues, and I know we've got educators in the room, I'm the son of 2 career educators, my wife's a school teacher, she's an assistant principal. Our youth lacks confidence because our society tends to take confidence away. It tends to create doubt rather than create surety, right? So if you can incorporate all those things, and they're all intrinsically linked, to arrive here. That two-way confidence is really, really important. So we'll define some of that. So conversations, you know, we've spoken a lot about relationships. The demonstration of genuine empathy. The demonstration of genuine empathy. All right? Luke, I really care for you. Now, you're one part embarrassed, one part disgusted, and one part highly doubtful right now. It's not, you know, it's not genuine. So you've got to invest in and demonstrate genuine empathy and interest. And the only way you can do that as an effective coach and an effective leader, right, is be brave enough to talk about things outside basketball, be brave enough to ask questions, and brave enough to invest time in just finding out about the individual. That's an effective coaching habit. So at the Gold Coast Suns, there's and I'll send the article and you can send it out to everyone, there's one of their high performance consultants, Mick Polton. He encourages all the coaches there at the Gold Coast Suns in the AFL. They have their training ground here, and it's a 5-minute walk to their other training facilities. Same complement, it's a 5-minute walk. So what he asks his coaches and his support staff to do, that after training, when everyone's walking back to the facility to lift weights, have a meeting, watch some video, or maybe just have a shower, is he asks the coaches to get across the flight path of one of their athletes. So now we've got a 5-minute walk, a 5-minute conversation, 5-minute chat in a non-threatening environment where we're just asking about how they're going. How's things at home? Oh, I know you just had a baby. How's that going? Are they getting sleep? How are you managing all this? Right? And then sometimes it's about how did you find training? How did you find the, being dropped 2 weeks ago, and then the managing those emotions. And then what they do, the coaches go back and they write dot points on that, just so they've got a dossier of information. Right? And that flight path conversation, you hold it, well, I don't have an overall plan of training. Flight path conversation can be before training, it can be during training. Right? When someone's going to drink, and Dave Naylor, who's spoken about, he's great at this. I see him, I've worked with him on the floor 3 or 4 times. I always look over and he's having conversations with kids. And initially, because I'm old and crusty, I'm like, why are you talking while I'm talking, man? I'm the most important dude in the room, right? But no, I'm not. The kid is the most important, the athlete's the most important, and he's just having a conversation. I never ask him about what, but at the end of it, he's got a lot of information, and he's demonstrated that. So constant and worthwhile feedback. We spoke about Fight Club coaching, engagement of your staff. Make everyone better. It was fantastic that we had Ben speak about culture, because he's lived it consistently in all the programs he's been involved, and he was the cultural leader of the best wheelchair basketball program in the world. So he's really highly qualified to share that information. But it happened from empowerment, and it happened from a lot of engagement. So that's a great habit too. Now, if you look now at the San Antonio Spurs organisation, they have, from the Greg Popovich era, 34 staff members from the San Antonio Spurs, either in coaching or senior management roles in other NBA franchises. How many NBA teams is there? There's 34. So there's someone from the Spurs at every one, and some have got to general managers, other head coaches. That doesn't happen, right, without effective coaching habits. Right? So that's really important. And another great trait and habit is accountability and honesty. And there's some double up in what Steve spoke about. That was a hollow offer too. There's some double up in what Edo spoke about. But all these things are common. And the great thing about today, there's been a lot of common themes. So your competency. Have you got a growth mindset? Well, I would indicate you do, because you're here and you're asking questions. If you've got a closed mindset, it's going to be really difficult for you to be a competent coach. So your technical and tactical acumen, how are you investing in that? So what are you asking questions? What are you watching to develop a high level of technical and tactical acumen? And it's a journey of constant learning. So what's your investment? Now, most of you, I'd say everyone in the room, except perhaps Luke and myself, volunteer coaches. And Luke is a volunteer coach in one stage of his life, but he gets paid to be in a coaching role, as I do. But what's your investment? You're making a significant one here. But who are you talking to? Who are you having conversations with? What are you reading? Who are you watching? Are you going to practices? What's your level of investment? The effective coach is a highly invested coach. Now, people say, oh, I don't have time, I'm already giving up X amount of hours, and Ben touched on this during an SPL season, for example. You might be spending 12, 14 hours plus with basketball. You've got a full-time job, you've got a family, and whatever else. But you drive to work every day, or you ride your bike to work every day in the beautiful West. That's a chance to listen to a podcast. You sit on planes to go somewhere, it's a chance to read something. But there is opportunities for you to invest efficiently. Okay, so how's your contemporary knowledge and language? Now this is a big one, isn't it? Because our game's a game of jargon. I remember going to watch a practice with the great Brian Gorgon. I think he's the best sports coach I've ever been around, forget basketball. The man's a genius. But he's a cartoon character, right? He talks in riddles. His language is just bizarre. And when I say language, I don't mean coarse language, although there's some of that. And he was talking about a term, and I said to his great friend and assistant coach, I said, Billy, what was that? I missed that. He goes, don't worry about it. I said, no, it's gorge, I want to know. He goes, it'll change tomorrow, so don't worry about it. Right? So don't get too caught up in contemporary jargon, but be contemporary in terms of your knowledge base. Tap into these guys at BWA, tap into the great resources you've got. So, because what do the kids expect? They don't expect you to be Greg Popovich. They're not, I'll tell you, they're not that interested in you. But what they do want is you to be able to talk their language, and talk the language that's going to help them move from maybe your domestic local competition club, maybe into a more local program, right? So it's not a matter of every single coach in Australia using the same language, but it certainly is about you being contemporary and just making subtle adjustments. We've spoken a little about coaching philosophy, and I think that's coming up, so I'm not going to steal anyone's thunder. Innovation. When's the last time, I want you to write this down, right? The answer to this question, not the question. When's the last time you did something for the first time? Now, it doesn't have to be in coaching parlay, but to me, the great Gary Pert, Fitzroy Football Club, right? That's his definition, so I can't claim it, of innovation. When's the last time you did something for the first time? Now I want you to turn your brain to coaching. How innovative are you in coaching? Because the great coaches, the most effective coaches, are great innovators. Now, I'm going to ask this question, I'm going to get an answer that I don't want, and then I'll give you the right answer. Okay? Who's the best coach in the AFL over the last 10 years? Okay, yeah, let's talk about Adam Simpson. I know they beat Collingwood, we move on. All right? Alistair Clark. Right? He's the most innovative coach in the history, maybe with the exception of Kevin Sheedy, in the history of the AFL game. Right? What does everyone do? They copy Clarko. What does Clarko do while they're copying him? He moves on to the next thing. Understand this, imitation is a short runway. Eventually, you're going to have to go wheels up. So if all you're doing is trying to emulate Brian Gorgian, Alistair Clarkson, Trevor Gleeson, Sandy Brondello, Lisa Alexander, whatever it is, right? That's not innovation, that's imitation. And we're all, every coach in this room engages in imitation. The really good coaches take it to this step and they innovate. So confidence comes from conversations and competency, right? Confidence in your approach and your knowledge base. Demonstrated confidence in your players. What's some example of a demonstrated show of confidence in your players?
Playing time.
Playing time, okay? Now, in playing time, I spoke to Adam Ford today, and the young guy, that's West Australian, Reece Vague, is now playing a lot of minutes. When they first started playing him in a lot of minutes, people might have said, well, hold it, we've got all these experienced guys, why is this guy getting to play? Well, one, they'd seen something in practice week in, week out, but because Reece is not a real effusive kid, right? He's not busting in the room, chest out, I'm here, right? They wanted to demonstrate in front of 14,000 people in the Red Army, we've got your back. We believe in you, Reece. Out you go. And they almost looked away. No, you're good. He's like, oh, what do you want me? No, you're good. Do what you do in training. And now he's become a pivotal player as they go into the demonstrated confidence, right? Demonstrated confidence. Now, Reece, I'm going to put you in. Just focus on catching it and giving it to Bryce. Right? If Bryce is near you, get out of his way. Good luck, son. That's not demonstrated confidence. Now, I'm sure that they gave some parameters. Reece, if you're going to shoot it or Bryce is going to shoot it, there's not a decision there, my friend. But they still, it was really evident to that young man, as well as the 14,000 people in the Red Army, everyone else around the league, that they had confidence in him. This is a big trait or an effective habit. Courage to stay the course. Change is difficult, change comes with great heartache. So can you stay the course? Because if you want to change outcome, you need to change process. Sometimes you need to change personnel. You need to change approach. It's not going to be easy. Do you have the courage to stay the course? Two great things happened today for really important people in my life. And they both happened about the same time back east, about 2:30, 3 o'clock. My 9-year-old scored her first 2 baskets ever playing basketball. 40 games in. It was a great moment. And my great friend Mike Kelly got a win with the Cairns Taipans. And if you want to look at an example of someone with the courage to stay the course, it's Mike Kelly. They win their first game, he gets talked up, oh, this guy's a coaching savant. They lose their next 13 games, he's a bum. He hasn't changed, you know, if anyone watches the NBL, has he changed his demeanour? Has he changed his approach? Has he changed his personality 1 millimetre? No. Alright? So that's a trait that people want to be around. That's a trait that people want to aspire to. Chris Lucas has the Adelaide Lightning in the grand final. They're playing right now. Right? 12 weeks ago they were told you're done, you're not going to have a team next year. In that 12 weeks, they've won 14 out of a possible 16 games. That's courage to stay the course. And building confidence in those you lead, well, we've spoken about that. It's not all about your confidence, it's about creating confidence. So the effective coach is punctual. I couldn't have a coach education, coach development activity that I was involved in where we didn't rabbit on about punctuality, because it's my thing. If you're not on time in our sport, it's going to be a struggle. Why? Our sport has more time elements than any other sport in the world. 3 seconds in the key, 5 seconds to get the ball in bounds, 8 seconds to get it out of the backcourt, 24-second shot clock, 14-second shot clock, reset, right? 4 10-minute quarters, 2-minute quarter time, yada 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 yada, time out. Everything's geared around time. So if you aren't respectful and cognizant about time and don't lead the management of time, you're not going to be an effective coach. Alright? So that's a big one. Detail-oriented and planned, we've spoken a lot about that. Embraces change. We spoke about the courage to change. Right? The courage to lead change. You know what takes more courage and more intestinal fortitude? Is embracing change. Often the change that you have to embrace is driven by someone else. When you're driving change, you're in it. Yeah, we're doing this. I've got a vision, we're going. In coaching, sometimes we have to jump in with the ethos, the philosophy, or the change of the club. Charlie spoke about sponsors. You have to embrace that. Guys are putting in, you know, $50,000, $60,000. We want change. You can fight it or you can embrace it. So that's important too. Uses technology. Now, I said earlier today, I think that the use of and I don't want to be sound like I'm critical of that technology, but high-level video technology like sports code, and I think it's overtaken our sport. I think it's taken it to somewhere where a lot of coaches have become really inefficient because they're investing massively in this and they're not any longer investing in people. Young coaches, young elite coaches that I deal with, right, I say to them, how do you teach shooting? And they say, oh, well, we open a code window on what we can do. We can layer over here. We can do... No, how do you teach shooting? Yeah, well, I would get the video and they would come in and No, how would you get a caveman and show them how to shoot this ball in this basket? Yeah, well, what we would do on the code window, I've got a button. No! Right? But that said, Greg Popovich uses technology 70 years old. Right? So you've got to be able to embrace technology. I hear people say all the time, oh, you know, I'm not real good on the IT. And that's okay, not everyone is. But your athletes expect that. Coop spoke about sending scouting reports to their phones. How else are you going to get them to read it? Right? Oh, here's 4 A4 pages, just read this. Yeah, bro. Not a chance. You better put their name on it so you know who's not reading it. Right? So you do have to embrace technology. Feedback. Quick story. Again, Gary Pert, when he was CEO of Collingwood Football Club, he brought in the membership manager and said, our goal is to get to 70,000 members in the Collingwood Football Club. 70,000. This is about 10 years ago, when 50,000 was nirvana. Right? That was a pipe dream, 50,000. He said, I want you to try and get to 70,000 members. So go away for a week, devise a strategy, then come back, tell me how we're going to do it. So the guy went away, came back, had a PowerPoint, presented to Gary Pert and the board on how it was impossible, implausible, and no chance in hell that any football club in the AFL could get to 70,000 members. So Gary Pert said, well, I need to give you some feedback. You're fired. He said, but we need to go and have a coffee and I'm going to give you some feedback. If you're going to grow, firstly, your values don't fit our values, but if you're going to grow in this sport, you're going to need to understand that, 1, you've got to have a growth mindset. 2, you've got to jump on board with the vision of whoever is signing the checks. And 3, think challenge rather than think challenges. Think challenge rather than think. And we said, well, how'd that go? He said, he left with the shits, and I went back to my office and moved on to the next thing, and I felt fine. So does that make him a chief arsehole? No, because he's saying, I gave him feedback. Hopefully, now that guy's gone on to be the membership manager at another club, and they've got 82,000 members. So Gary Pert feels pretty good about life, right? Because he embraces feedback, doesn't run away from it. Balance. Who's got, hands up if you've got phenomenal work-life balance. What's a life? Well, I'm just glad we've got no liars, right? So, you know, but you do need to strike a balance, you know, with what you do. So the great ones do have that balance. As busy as they are, they do strike a balance. Adam Simpson is the greatest example of that. All right, he's going to prioritise his family over his football club, and not going to be embarrassed. In fact, he's going to shout it from the rooftop, this is what I'm doing. This is my priority. This provides me balance. End of conversation. No one's going to judge me because I don't care if they do. So make sure that you've got some balance, because if as an effective leader, if there's a significant imbalance, it's going to be a struggle. Who finds it challenging to drive their career and be aspirational in their career away from basketball, and then try and be the best basketball person you can be? Who finds that a significant challenge? I found it a significant challenge when I first started coaching at a reasonable level when I was a journalist. I'm a journalist by trade. I haven't written an article in anger in 25 years. Reason, I couldn't do it. I couldn't strike the balance. I was at work all day thinking about basketball. I became a really bad journalist. Well, I shouldn't say I became. I just was maybe a bad journalist in the first place. Right, so I decided to make that change to do this thing full time because I didn't have the skills or the willingness to strike that balance. Right? Now, I'm not saying that's a good way to go, because not everyone can work in basketball. There's only so many jobs, and some people don't want to. Some people don't have a desire to do that. But you've got to give some thought and spend, again, the investment piece. When I listen to podcasts now, it's less about basketball and more about self. It's business leaders. It's highly successful people from other parts of society. How do they do this? A great example of balance is most of our prime ministers over years, but John Howard comes to mind. John Howard found time, 45 minutes a day, every day of his life to go for a walk. He'd usually do it in an awful Cricket Australia tracksuit or something, but he did. There's the busiest man. Now, I'm not getting into politics. That's got to be the busiest man in Australia, right? Every day he found time, he prioritised time to find balance. So that 45 minutes, and then he might have done a 17-hour day. But he found that. So if the busiest man in Australia can do it, why can't we? Right? Because it's just a priority, it's just a choice. This is a big one. Has a plan and communicates the plan. You know where plans fail? Where no one knows what the plan is. Right? Here's your plan for planning. Have a plan. Communicate the plan. Seek feedback on the plan. Review the plan. Drive the plan. But pretty easy. 5 steps for planning. But it starts with the first 2. Have a plan. You go, well, that's obvious. No, it's not. Who knows a coach, right, of a decent level, and you go, this guy's got no plan. You know, one of my coaching friends that we grew up in the same region, and he's coached both in the NBL and WNBL. They'd lose 2 games in the pre-season. He'd walk in and throw out the offense. They spent 8 weeks in the pre-season putting in 1 offense. They lose 2 games and throw it out. That's not a plan. That's chaos. All right? And this guy's a phenomenal coach. But early in his career, he never had a plan, and he certainly never communicated the plan. Then the next step was he was the most planned coach of all time. Where did it fail? He still didn't tell anyone. Right? What's the plan, coach? Plan is I've got one and you'll do as you're told. Oh, well, let's jump on board that plan. That sounds like a consultative thing that we want to be a part of. All right? So have a plan and communicate the plan. I'm cognizant of time, so I've raced through that. Any questions on any of that, or anything that anyone wants to share? If you notice this afternoon, we haven't spoken a lot of X's and O's. Well, in fact, for the day, we haven't spoken a lot of X's and O's. And Luke had that great quote. You know, it's not about the X's and O's; it's about the Johnny and Joes. All these skills are modern coaching. You know, so your ability to be self-aware is powerful. Right? Your ability to manage conversations is powerful. Right? Your ability to reflect on self, make change, to instigate change is crucial. Reflect on self, make change, to instigate or drive change. That's an effective coach. Do you think that the Perth Wildcats, they're about to have their 34th consecutive playoff run, have had the best X's and O's for 34 years in a row? I would highly doubt it, right? Do you think even they've had the best Johnny and Joes for 34 years in a row? They've had some pretty good players, really good players, but always better. Are they so much better talent-wise than the Kings and United? No, I don't think so, right? What they do is have, to Ben's point, is a strong culture, but a willingness to communicate that. I come to Perth 1 week a year, right? I've watched from afar, but I know what the Perth Wildcats are about, from their marketing to their leadership, to their administration, to their venue, to their game night, to their encore. Right? So there's some effective leadership there over a long time, and specifically for coaches, there's some effective coaching habits there for a long time. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk. I know we've got some other presenters. Yep, questions?
Sorry, just strategies for getting feedback in season. So we all go off and we, early on in the year we do a lot of talking and get things going, but as the season's going on, what sort of people do get feedback from parents, which is not always what you want, but what's good strategies to get feedback from others?
Critical friends, so you've got mentors, but critical friends, just people that and when the word, as you know, critical friends doesn't mean they come in and just criticise. But often when you get a mentor to give you feedback, they want to nurture, they want to support, and they've probably got some sort of emotional, connection with you. So just step away a little bit from mentors and identify some critical friends. And sometimes it can be intimidating. To seek feedback. When I first got this job, I went and met with an NBL coach who I didn't know that well and can be a bit volatile at times. And I just said, what do you think of what we do? He goes, get a pen and listen up. And that's a quote. Grab your pen and listen up. And he went, bam, 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 bam. And I'm writing along, whatever. He goes, you're not saying much. I go, no, I'm writing it down. I'm thinking, not saying much. Wow. At the end of it, he goes, thanks. Yeah, thanks. But it was really worthwhile. Now, I'm not saying you want to go to that level, but just grab someone, get some critical friends. With the parents, pick someone and just be brave. How do you think, and again, open-ended, how do you think the team's going? Or to quote the great Dennis Denudo, how's the vibe of the team? How's the vibe of this? All right? And it's a really broad thing, because often when we engage people to give feedback, we give them guided, how do you think the team's going in terms of how we're running it? No. What's the vibe of the team? One, that'll give you a real clear response, and two, you'll be able to take from that information what you think is relevant. And players. People say, well, hold on, I coach 12-year-olds. Feedback. Get feedback from players. In that flight path environment, what do you think it is? How do you enjoy that? What's the best thing we've done for the first third of the season? My daughter rang me to tell me, she said, Dad, she's using questions, she says, what would you do, what would you give me if I scored a basket in a game? Now she's played for 3 comps and never even, looked like scoring. I said, well, I'm in Perth, and I see there's a Katie Ray singlet downstairs, I'll probably get you a Katie Ray singlet. She goes, what else? So I would probably go to Gelamatissimo for ice cream. She said, okay. What would you do if I scored 2 baskets? And then straight away I'm like, oh, look out, I'm in trouble. She scored 2 baskets. But again, it was a good little dialogue even with a 9-year-old. So don't be afraid to ask players. Because especially with kids, it'll be unfiltered and it'll be genuine. You know that, it'll be authentic. Trevor?
Yeah, one of the things we do after sessions or games or whatever, under 8s and under 10s, is ask them what they learned.
Yep.
So we get them in a group before our hurrah at the end, and they think they're coming in for the hurrah, and then you say, well, what did you learn today? And it's amazing what they come up with. And we'll try and get them to say something different. Each one has learned something different, and it's amazing how much the others go, oh yeah, we did that, yeah, it all comes together again.
See how I think, how's school today? Good. What you learn? Nothing. Whose fault's that? What a ridiculous, what you learn? Oh, well, we started off with maths and we did, So you've got to provide them with guided questioning, but the big one, don't grade the answer. Especially, with all athletes, if you're going to use questioning, don't obviously correct them, but don't grade the answer. Well, yeah, sort of, but good luck with them being authentic again, when you ask them, because you've graded it. Man, I'm not saying, I don't want to see. Right? Every answer has to be an A in their mind, and then it's your job to work through that. I know we've got a couple other presentations, and I'm looking forward to those. So again, thanks very much, guys.